Hi everyone. We live in an era of sales that is absolutely unparalleled. And one of the main reasons for this is there's so much excellent science and data available that tells us what works and what doesn't. So for many years, sales training and kind of concepts have been based on anecdotal evidence. And we really couldn't tell if they worked or not. However, we now live in a time where CRM reigns supreme. And the data our CRMs gather can show us genuinely what works and what doesn't. So in this video, I'm going to show you 5 fantastic sales strategies that are backed up by research and data. So the first one, employ a systematic approach to prospecting. So according to Topo, it takes an average of about 8 calls to engage with a buyer, and only 24% of sales emails are really opened. And as a result, salespeople who only send a handful of emails or make 1 or 2 calls are giving up far too soon. This is why it's so important that we adapt a systematic approach to prospecting. This means planning out a complete prospecting process that each prospect would go through. So for example, as part of a systematic approach, we would send an email, then we would make a call. And after this, we would leave a voicemail, we'd send a LinkedIn request, subsequently then send them another email, make another call, email a video message, and then finally then leave another voicemail. But whatever your approach is, must plan it out completely. So it shouldn't be done in a random manner. It should be planned and there should be lots of steps. Because, prospects don't respond to us because they don't want or need what we have to offer. In most cases, prospects are extremely busy and have a lot on their plates. So in the end, it's all about getting the appropriate message in front of the right prospect at the right moment in time. And that's what a systematic approach works. So number 2 on my list is next steps or contract to call. And some recent data from Gong kind of tells us that close rates actually decline by 71% when next steps aren't discussed. Now, so many salespeople I know, will say, I tried to follow up with the prospect, but they never got back to me, or they never answered my call. However, if you were contracting the call or using next steps, there'd be no need to follow up in the first place. You always have to have a scheduled next steps with a prospect at every stage of the sale. So the third one I have for you is learn how to disqualify. Now, the data shows that about 50% of prospects that we talk to just aren't a good fit for what we offer. Now, based on this, it'd be great if we could, use an approach earlier on in our sales conversation that allow us to weed out this 50%. And as doing so, of course, would enable us to save ourselves a lot of time and energy. Now, a way you could do this is through disqualifying statements. And they go something like this. You could say, I actually don't know if you're a good fit for what we provide, but I do happen to have a question or two. Or, I actually don't know if you need what our services provide, so I have a question or two. Disqualifying statements like these not only create a sense of curiosity with a prospect, but they also show that you're genuinely interested in helping those who need your help. After you disqualify a statement, you can then go ahead and ask a few systematic questions to really determine whether someone's a fit. And if they're not, move on. But if they are, then you at least know you can now move everything to the next steps. So the fourth one I got is called the flip chart pitch. And it's based on data gathered by Steve W. Martin, which shows that just 31% of salespeople can effectively communicate with top executives. Now, I want you to imagine yourself as a senior executive and consider what it's like to be hounded by salespeople on a daily basis. And then worse still, they all begin their pitches with how fantastic their product or service is, or I'd love to learn about your business and understand what keeps you awake at night. Now, both these approaches is just to frustrate senior executives, as they just don't want to be engaged in this sort of manner. Senior executives are looking for knowledge and insight, and they want to talk to people that have expertise and know what they're talking about. An ideal way of getting your message across and engaging senior executive in a more effective manner is simply by using a flip chart pitch. Now, it works something like this. At the beginning of an interaction with a senior executive, you can demonstrate that you understand some of their key challenges that they're facing, by using a flip chart or a whiteboard, back of an envelope, or even a Zoom screen share. Not only is using a visual aid an extremely powerful way of showing your understanding of what's going on in the world, but if you can back it up with some sort of data that supports this, then you're going to show you have the expertise and you're worthwhile engaging with. And then finally, number 5 is the check for the real objection. Now, another great piece of data from Steve W. Martin tells us that 2/3 of buyers avoid revealing the truth about their intent to salespeople. And what this means is when a prospect hits us with an objection, it's very rarely the actual concern that they have. So a way to think about this objection is they give us is almost like an iceberg. And at the tip of the iceberg is their initial objection that they throw at us. And so what we need to do is obviously get below the surface so we can understand what's really going on. Now, to do this, we can simply check if their objection is real by asking the prospect to park their objection to the side for a moment and consider the proposal anyway. And this is what top performers are doing on a consistent basis. And as a result, they ultimately deal with the real issue that the prospect is facing, thus significantly increasing the likelihood of actually closing the sale. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the video. And as I always say, if you like the content I'm putting out there, please go ahead, click the follow, give me a like, and as always, good selling.